All right, Lightworker. I'm sitting here waiting for a call that I have been looking forward to for a long time. Because today's guest is someone who's been holding a very powerful frequency on this planet for a long time. And today we're talking about something that I think every Lightworker eventually discovers. Sometimes you begin your work before the world is ready for it. Before the hashtags, before the podcasts, before there's even language for the work, and definitely before AI. And today's guest is someone who started working with sound and healing frequencies decades ago, long before sound healing became something that you all see everywhere on social media. Jonathan Goldman is one of the pioneers in this field, and he's written books like The Humming Effect, which teaches people how to use their own voice as a healing instrument. And he's spent decades helping people understand the relationship between sound and consciousness. And what I love about Jonathan is his devotion, because we've had some interesting conversations behind the scenes about how strange this era is. And in some ways, there are more opportunities than ever to share your message, but in other ways, it's harder than ever to truly be seen. So today we're talking about what it means to stay devoted to your light work for the long haul. And what I love about him is not just the wisdom, but the devotion. Because devotion is a frequency. And when someone has held that frequency for decades, you can feel it. So today we're going to talk about how you stay true to your work when the world keeps changing around you, and how someone becomes a lifelong light worker. All right, let's see if he's calling. Oh, there he is. Hey, Jonathan.
Hello, Joy. What a blessing it is to be talking to you and seeing you. How cool this is. What a great experience.
I am so happy to see you. I mean, I have to say, Jonathan, it is such an honor to have you here, because we've had the pleasure of having you as a guest on Wednesdays with Cryon, produced through Solopreneur Productions, and you are so respected in the sound healing world that it really means a lot to me that you're taking time to join us today. So I just want you to know that. Thank you so much. And before we dive in, could you just give everyone the 20-second version of who you are and who you help?
Yikes. All right. My name is Jonathan Goldman, and I've been on the planet for over 75 years. I came here to help bring awareness of the uses of sound and music for healing to the planet. So I've helped a whole lot of people. I like to believe I've helped raise the vibrations of the planet, and let's hope that I might be able to help some of us raise our own consciousness just by this wonderful conversation with each other, Joy.
Oh, I'm sure that anyone who's watching it is going to feel that way by the time we're done, knowing you for sure. So, Jonathan, what are you working on these days that feels so exciting?
I just yesterday finished the final edit of a book called Ascension Harmonics, and it's an update of a book that it was a bestseller called The Divine Name. And this one is Ascension Harmonics, and it has to do with a sacred sound from, if you like, the Bible, what it's called the Tetragrammaton, and how this is actually a vowel-oriented sequence of descending and then ascending vowel sounds that's universal and can be utilized by everyone to help induce higher states of consciousness and healing. It's a book for the planet, and I hope it makes a difference.
Oh, I'm sure it will. So take us back for a moment. What first called you into working with sound as a healing modality?
Joy, great question. We're going to go into the Wayback Machine, and I am going to take you back to 1979, a seaside bar in Cape Cod, where I am playing with a rock and roll band, and I strap on my Stratocaster, and I go on stage with the band. I look out at the audience, and I go, whoa, because I come to the realization that the ambiance in the club is one of negativity and violence. And I realize that the alcohol that people are imbibing and the drugs and the other stuff people are imbibing in are helping induce this ambiance. But I also understand that the music that I'm creating at that time is helping induce this ambiance of negativity. And I had the thought, and I've been playing professionally for about 15 years, and I had the thought, gee, I wonder if music can be used to feel good, for have people feel good. Because I'd always been like, hey, look at me, aren't I cool? What a great guitar player, etc. And this time it was like, wow, I wonder what the music is doing to the people. And about a week later, that thought transformed about 10% and became, gee, I wonder if sound can be used to heal.
Wow. So you had been a musician for 15 years at that point, and you've been doing this for quite some time. Did you feel like you were doing this work long before sound healing became widely recognized? In other words, did you ever feel like you were too early for the work you were doing?
Well, I will say that I've always been a bit of a stranger in a strange land. I mean, from get-go, I've always had an interest in science fiction. I've always had an interest in other worlds, other beings, other dimensions, other levels of consciousness. So I was always very, very interested in the esoteric and the psychic, but I never put together the idea of using sound or music as a healing modality. All of a sudden that night, I like to say I was struck by the light of God when I was on stage that night, because it shifted my very vibrational rate, my consciousness.
Wow. Wow. So looking back over the decades, right? Because you've been playing for decades now, what would you say you're most proud of?
Still being on the planet. Because I have to tell you that rock and roll, particularly, was a very rough thing. It was very, very rough, and I just can understand why there's such an incredible casualty list among all the players who, some of my heroes, there was something called the 27 Club, where all these people died at the age of 27, whether it was Brian Jones or the Rolling Stones or Jimi Hendrix or Jim Morrison or Janis Joplin, all these people. And I was pretty much a youngster. I remember I was maybe in my early 20s when this started happening, and we didn't understand. Now, astrologically, there may be something called the Saturn return that happens when you're around 27 that may be what was responsible for a lot of these people passing on. But it's also a very hard life. So I really give thanks that sound healing saved my life, at least. I'll tell you that much, because I don't think if I had gone on to the fame and fortune that I desired, I would have probably survived.
You know, and it also makes me wonder, because some of the old time rock and rollers, like Carl and I went to see the Doobie Brothers last summer, and they were rocking it. I mean, they were really tearing up the stage. And I haven't seen the Rolling Stones, but I've heard the same thing, that Mick Jagger just is like, he really tears it up. And I wonder if there is some kind of sound healing, if you make it past that point, right? That really, keeps you alive.
Well, there's the old Keith Richards story, and poor Keith, I think, may not be able to be performing anymore because of arthritis. So we do, all of us, age and whatnot, but I'm just going to suggest that for those who made it past a certain age, they begin to pay more attention to their bodies and what's happening. The Stones, for sure. I know that Mick and boys have trainers that they travel with and all this other stuff. But I think when you're younger and you're just trying to survive, it's a whole different ball game. So once again, it depends upon everything breaks down to consciousness. That's as far as I can perceive. Consciousness is everything, and our awareness is going on. And when you're young, you think you're immortal.
So true. Jonathan, am a hummer. I love to hum. And I did it as a small child. And one of the things I love about your work is how you've talked about the power of humming. You even wrote about this in The Humming Effect. What actually happens when someone hums?
So just last night, don't ask me why, but just last night in a dream, it's almost as though we went through this because I was explaining to some large group about the power of humming, as I often do. So this is nothing new. It was interesting that I should be dreaming about it, dreaming about this presentation of presenting to a large group about the power of humming. What was the question?
The question is, what actually happens when someone hums?
Okay, so lots of things really happen when people hum. When you hum, and you have to understand that there are some attributes that you got to do when you hum. But number one, you got to have your lips closed. If you have your lips open, that's an entirely different effect because the sound is then going out of your mouth as it being totally self-contained by having your lips closed. So you have your lips closed, and you oftentimes will have people particularly hum on just one note, such as like that, as opposed to singing Yankee Doodle or trying to hum the 1812 Overture. But what happens? You get increased oxygen in your cells. You get increased lymphatic circulation. You get lowered blood pressure and heart rate. And this is huge because everybody's so stressed out. And a simple, non-pharmaceutical solution to stress is simply humming, conscious humming, as we call it. You get increased levels of melatonin. You get reduced levels of stress-related hormones. You get the release of endorphins, those wonderful self-created opiates that work as natural pain relievers. You get increased levels of nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, and also it is an antibacterial agent, and you get the release of oxytocin, and you get the basically vagal toning. The vagus nerve gets toned, and you get increased heart rate variability. I just ran through an hour's worth of stuff in a moment. Shall I explain more, or is that enough?
No, I'm also curious. Why do you think that people underestimate their own voice? Like, I mentioned when I was a child, I would hum all the time. I didn't know it was a healing instrument. I just did it. Nobody taught me. Why do you think that everyone is born this way? And how do we discover that we enjoy it, or that we're hooked on it, or how some people hum and some people don't, right?
Right. I'm trying to get everybody to hum so here's the story, Joy. About 10 years ago, my wife and I were teaching at the Royal College of Music in London, very large audience, 500 people or so, and we were there for a return bout. We had been there the year before teaching some very advanced harmonic-related vowel sound toning, and it was all great and powerful, and we came back the next year and said, okay, how many of you are doing this on a daily basis? And like about 2 people raised their hand, and we kind of looked at each other and we said, wow, we need to find some sort of sonic practice that people can work with on a daily level and do it. Because here's the do. You ready? Most people have what we could call a restricted throat chakra. Somehow somebody said, oh, you go out, just an example, you go out for choir and the teacher says, you're out of tune, or you sing quiet, or you mouth the words. So we have sort of this restricted throat chakra that's due to well-meaning different people, or people just telling you, singing in the shower, and they go, that sounds horrible. So you go, whoa, you get real self-conscious. And it's like, for a lot of people, even making sounds, speaking in public, is one of the great number one fears. For some people, it's even a greater fear than death. So, my goodness gracious, I'm telling Andy, okay, what's one sound that everybody can relate to? What's one sound that everybody can do that they don't have any judgment about, because everybody's so judgmental about their voice? And we looked at each other, we went, and we said, okay, babies hum. The elderly hum. We hum when we're happy. And from there, we just began to do a deep dive. And the deeper we dove, the more incredible, the extraordinary healing ability of the simple hum became. And we were then faced with the question, okay, this book, The Humming Effect, is the first professionally published book on the subject of humming. What are we going to do to let people take this as a serious subject? And we said, okay, we got to make the first chapter nothing more or less than peer-reviewed information on the physiological benefits of humming. And we did that, and that seemed to be the ticket, because from there we get more and more esoteric to a degree where the last chapter is called The Humming Hypothesis, and this is something I'm so interested in myself, Joy. Since I was 30 years old, and I was actually involved in a PhD program that I researching the uses of sound music for healing that I had to drop out of because my first book, Healing Sounds, became so popular that I had to go on tour, or I chose to go on tour all over the world because of it. But the focus of this PhD program was using self-created sounds, harmonic sounds, to basically charge the brain and create what is called neurogenesis. And in fact, in the humming effect, in the humming hypothesis, we talk about that as a possibility, and I am convinced we'll sooner or later find that humming is also really good for, shall we say, energizing, charging the brain, creating neurogenesis, being good for people who have memory problems and even stroke and stuff like that. I think it's that powerful. The data hasn't been in, but I got a lot of anecdotal information. And you know what they say about anecdotal information? The plural of anecdote is data.
Well, okay, so you mentioned Healing Sounds correspondence course. Is that related to the book that you just mentioned, Healing Sound?
Well, the healing sounds we just have online. It's up fairly recently. It was basically something I created back in the early 1990s, the Healing Sounds correspondence course. And now we've, of course, updated it for the 2025, 26, 27 era. And it's an online course, but it teaches people, we call it harmonic journeys. And it literally is a step-by-step process of vibrational activation using your own voice to basically embody sacred sound. And it's really cool, Joy. Now, humming is part of it. This is much more expansive. And it's a wonderful, wonderful program. Humming is something that I try to give to everybody because everybody can use it. This is a little more advanced, learning how to go, stuff like that, which is very cool, and I'm buzzing already from doing that. Perhaps you are too.
Yes.
Just another aspect of what we can do with the voice, and that wasn't really singing. We call that toning, Toning, and it's meaning the use of vowel sounds to, embody all sorts of things from resonance to emotional expression.
I'm just curious, how did you discover that humming was so powerful?
It's one of the very first things that I experienced back when I first began to work with sound as a healing modality. Joy, about a week after that experience that I told you about, where, I wonder if sound can be used to make people feel better, that shifted to, I wonder if sound can be used to heal, someone handed me a piece of paper, and on it was a workshop being given by a woman by the name of Sarah Benson. And I went to this, it was a workshop on healing with sound and music, and I went there, and I was placed in the middle of a circle during it. And I held one of these, a quartz crystal, while people all around me were singing my name, and I was transported to another realm of consciousness. I came back into my body, and I said, well, I got to find out about this, and I got to find out about this of using sound. But I have to tell you, the hum is always one of the very first rudimentary aspects that you learn about. If you want to start using your voice, almost the very first thing is the hum, because it's very, very natural. And you can, with the hum, just begin to feel resonance. You can learn to hum up and down your spine. You can learn to hum into your head and your pineal gland. You can learn to hum into your different chakras. It's that easy and that powerful.
I've always loved to hum. I don't consider myself a singer, but I remember the first time I heard you talk about that, I thought, wow, it was one of those things that, you feel like you were somehow divinely directed to do that without even knowing it, right? It just feels good. And that's one of the things I love about humming. I also love, Jonathan, that you and your wife, Andy, co-create experiences together like the sound satsang.
Yeah.
Tell us what those gatherings are like.
Well, you know what I'd love to do, Joy? What's just popping into my head right now, because we just got done very recently with the 24th annual World Sound Healing Day. And this is so major. I want to share this with you because it's such a powerful thing. This began back around 2000. Well, actually, literally, it began right around 2000, right around the turn of the century, Y2K, yikes, when I was in a state of deep meditation. And this voice said, okay, you have been working with using sound. You've been working with using sound for a long time now, and it's time for you to basically take your focus of attention and go from working with using sound for personal healing and include planetary healing. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. Planetary healing, how do we do that? And transmission got cut off. So I had to spend a couple of years trying to figure out how to do that. We decided that one day a year, and turned out to be Valentine's Day, we would basically project a sonic Valentine to the Gaia matrix, to the energy of our Mother Earth, using the ah sound, because the ah sound is one of the vowel sounds that really resonates the chakras, and it resonates really the heart center. This is all, of course, in the Seven Secrets of Sound Healing and all the other books that I've done, because it's so very, very powerful. But the idea is then we have people do the ah sound with the energy of intent, because I created this formula. And the formula is frequency plus intent equals healing. That means the sound plus the consciousness of the person creating the sound is what the resultant or the effect of the sound will be. Frequency plus intention equals healing. And it's hugely important. And for World Sound Healing Day, we not only make the ah sound, but we make the ah sound with something called heart-brain coherence, which is courtesy of our friends at HeartMath. It's a technique where you breathe in, you feel gratitude, appreciation, and compassion while you're breathing, and then we have them encode that energy of gratitude, compassion, kindness on to the ah sound, and we do that projecting the energy to the Gaia matrix. And what I love is there now is scientific validation to show that this is real.
Well, that was actually leads into my next question about what have you seen happen during, because that would be like is that the same as the global Om meditation, or is that something completely different?
Well, that is, but that is from the Global Consciousness Project, which I found out about a few years after the first World Sound Healing Day. And I'll tell you a little bit about it, if I may.
Absolutely.
I believe it comes from someone named Roger Nelson, who was associated with Princeton University. And Dr. Nelson somehow, in his research and studies, found that they would create something called a random number generator, which is a computer program that basically creates zeros and ones. And just as you flip a coin and it makes either 50 heads and 50 tails, here you get out of 100 numbers, you have 50 zeros and 50 ones. And that's a random number generator. But he found that when he had people who are advanced meditators, or at the time, because we're all advanced meditators now, but people basically projecting compassion and kindness and creating a field around the computer that had this program, the numbers became less random. They became slightly askewed. And literally, if they were totally random, 50 zeros, 50 ones, and you were to basically graph it, it would be a straight line. But because the numbers are skewed, you find that oftentimes events of high compassion create like a kind of a mountainous looking graph. And this indeed happened. The first World Sound Healing Day that I think they ever did was probably around 2009. And the most recent one that was done just a couple of weeks ago after World Sound Healing Day, and it shows for particularly one particular hour when we focused our greatest intent and greatest sound, it literally created this graph again. And what the graph shows, and this all comes from something called the Maharishi effect, which was done through, I believe, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who found that when large groups of people are meditating together, that the events of violence and anger in a vicinity are greatly lessened. And now we're looking at it from a global effect. Our friend Lynn McTaggart does similar things with her intention experiments. So this is just very cool because I like to say we heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We heal ourselves and we heal the planet. We have a choice and we can make a difference. And that's so important now. We can make a difference.
Yeah, actually, one of the questions you just answered that I wanted to ask you is, what role does community play in sound healing? And you've answered that, but how do you think we could, play a bigger role in encouraging more communities to do things like what you're talking about?
It's a wonderful question. It's a wonderful question. And for every World Sound Healing Day, and mind you, I'm preparing for this months in advance. It's like, what can I do to help assist this? And I think the more people who become aware of this event, of course, indeed, for our sound satsangs that we do now on every celestial event, the summer solstice, spring equinox, we got one coming up, etc. We include in it our global guided ohms, and I'm quite sure that those could be tracked and found to actually make a difference as well. I think any time people get together and meditate together, it's great. When we add the energy of sound, from my perspective, there's a reason why the different prayers on the planet are vocalized. They're chanted, whispered, spoken, or sung. And it's because prayer amplifies the power. I'll take that again. Sound amplifies the power of prayer and meditation. Let me just say that again. That's because sound amplifies the power of prayer. We got it that in the right order. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you feel like sound healing is something humanity is remembering rather than discovering?
Of course. Sure. The ancients, on a level, I think the first perception of sound was the, Og the caveman or Augette the cave woman would basically probably be doing some sort of chant to help the plants grow or help them hunt, or, what do we do when we stub our toe? We make a sound and we go, ow, or some other word. And that's just a level of the sound being used to reduce the pain. Believe it or not, they've done studies and they've shown that making sound when you hurt yourself relieves the pain a whole lot more. And if you don't believe it, stub your toe and don't make a sound.
I don't think I could. I think it comes naturally. So Jonathan, what do you think most people misunderstand about sound healing?
Well, Joy, I have helped bring sound healing onto the planet, and I basically created the formula frequency plus intent, and I think I helped empower people with, in the very first, if you like, secret of sound healing is that everything is vibration, and I deal a whole lot with frequency. And so a lot of people have gotten into everything's got a frequency. There's been a whole big buzzword about frequency, but I think there's a whole lot of misunderstanding about frequency, and I think people oftentimes think that frequency particularly might be the same thing as emotions, that there's a frequency of love, for example, or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And if you like, love is a consciousness that can be encoded upon any frequency. So there's been, if you like, a misunderstanding about that. The importance of the fact that our dear friend Dr. Bruce Lipton has shown us with his biology of belief how important our belief is in something. So if we believe a sound is going to have some sort of effect, it will. But we need to not get too locked into specific frequencies having specific effects, because we are all, if you like, this is the third of the secrets of sound healing, is we are all unique vibratory beings. The second secret of sound healing is that intent is powerful. And the third one is that we are all unique vibratory beings. So not everybody is the same. Let me ask you a quick question. Are you allergic to penicillin?
No.
Good. My wife, Andy, is. So if she was in the conversation, it would be 1 out of 3. Usually it's about 1 out of 5 people is allergic to penicillin, about 20% of an audience.
Wow.
And I say, okay, if everything in the universe is a vibration, then penicillin is a vibration. And for 20% of people, it's a toxic vibration. For 80%, it's a healing vibration. But for 20%, it's a toxic vibration. And we need to honor that, because not everybody is the same. There is no magic frequency, at least as far as I've ever encountered in all my work.
Wow, that is fascinating. I did not know that about penicillin, but that's fascinating. Is there a difference between like entertainment sound versus transformational sound?
That's great. I have 2 terms. I haven't used them for a while. They are in the 7 secrets, and thank you for reminding me. But I say that's entertainment versus entrainment. Ooh. Entrainment is a phenomena of physics where one sound will basically affect the vibration, the frequency of another vibration, and shift and change it. And so on a level, when we use sound for healing, we're oftentimes using sound to entrain the other person, whether they're affecting their brain waves, their heart rate, their respiration, their bodily rhythms, their biofield, or whatnot. So that's an entrainment phenomena. So sometimes entertainment can be incredibly healing, particularly great for healing the emotional bodies. The blues sometimes is great, or sad songs can make you happy if you're feeling bad. But at the same time, using sound to really get into deep states of relaxation through entrainment is really, really the first step to, I think, healing, if you like, which is why the hum is great, because the hum is such a great de-stressor. It's like rescue remedy using sound.
Yeah. And I would guess intention as well, like music. I know for myself, when I started down a path of awakening, I stopped listening to any depressing music. I stopped listening to any negative music. I only listened to positive music. So intention would have a lot to do with it as well, right?
Oh, huge. When I first, after that experience that I had playing in the club and pursuing sound, I put down my electric guitar for about 3 years, because I just was convinced that it was, bad. But I realized then that it wasn't the guitar, from my perspective, or particularly the music, or the genre of music, but the energy of the music. Because if you think about it, I think the Beatles created some of the most positive healing music on the planet. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I mean, what a great thing to encode upon anything.
Yeah, and what simple lyrics they have that just becomes this, song that just plays over and over and over in your mind.
So once again, I think from my perspective, everything is fluid. And, we can utilize different types of music at different times to feed our body, mind, and spirit. The same thing is why don't get locked into specific frequencies. There's an incredible smorgasbord, a plethora of different frequencies on this planet, and to just focus on one particular frequency as being the healing frequency, I think does a great misservice to the whole energetic form of sound.
So you've stayed devoted to this work for decades, right?
Yikes, yeah.
What does it take to stay aligned with a mission for that long?
Well, I will say, I feel like this was my purpose. I don't get too much into the esoteric aspect, but I just think that I was, if you like, born into this planetary consciousness in order to have this as a job. At the same time, it incorporates so many other things, such as the importance of compassion and the importance of consciousness. If you perceive that sound, everything is vibration, then consciousness is an aspect of vibration. Compassion is an aspect of vibration. And I think that compassion and consciousness are mandatory for our continuation on this planet.
Yeah, beautifully said. And when you look ahead, what do you see for the future of sound healing?
I'm speechless for a moment because I actually have not looked ahead because I'm just looking around right now. And I have to tell you, Joy, that when I first was doing this, I thought that by around the year 2000, we would have instruments like our cell phones that would be like the transcorder from Star Trek that you would just hold over somebody and it would put the right frequency into your body and heal you, which I think is still going to happen. And I think it's not only the frequency, but it's basically going to encode and understand that we're all unique vibratory beings and things need to be done with love. But I thought we'd be actually a whole lot more advanced.
You're disappointed.
I'm just patient.
Oh, okay. I like that. I love hearing that vision. Okay, Jonathan, time for our microwave moment. All right, are you ready?
Well, you realize, of course, that if it's a microwave moment, we're dealing with frequency.
There was probably no mistake there. Okay, so first thing that comes
Yes,
to mind, when I say integrity, you say?
Authenticity.
Ah, nice. When I say money, you say?
And energy.
When I say impact, you say?
Power.
Okay, when I say sound, you say?
Love.
And when I say legacy, you say?
Wishful thinking.
Those were great, Jonathan. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I mean, your dedication to this work and the way you've helped bring sound healing into the world it's really inspiring. And I just have to say again that I'm so honored that you joined us today.
Joy, it's such a blessing, and I just want to say to you and anybody who's tapping into this, into our field, that really it's ultimately all about fields and our interfacing of fields. We're going to find more and more as we evolve on the planet that it's all about fields interfacing. This is quantum in nature, and these fields really represent the fact that we are ultimately all one. We're all unique vibratory beings, but we're all part of one wondrous consciousness that we can embody as love. And that's so cool.
That is so cool. And before we hang up here, Jonathan, I just want to give you the opportunity to, how can people learn more about you? Do you have any programs coming up? I think you said you were working on a book, right?
Book, I got programs, healingsounds.com is our website. Healingsounds.website. Healingsounds.com is a website, and it's got all sorts of different free information. It's been a cornerstone of the sound healing community. Go there, you will get lost in a world of sound, light, and love that I think you'll really enjoy. So I invite everyone to go visit us at healingsounds.com.
Well, and there you go. I just once again, I just want to say thank you and keep doing what you do. I mean, you have been such a huge part of the sound healing world, and everybody I know, especially if they're into sound healing, you're the first person that they talk about that has inspired them. So, you know, I think that is legacy, right?
That is legacy, and that this way I don't get too attached to it. Because you see, if people get too attached, from my perspective, to legacy, then it becomes all-encompassing. Let us instead be in the moment, be in the now, and be in our highest level of self.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Well, I got to run, but I would love to do this again sometime. Maybe we could do like an experience or something with sound that we could take people through. That would be so fun.
Sounds like a wondrous thing. Well, I gotta actually, as you said, I gotta run. Another phone call just is coming in, so I got to go too. So hey, what a blessing! Thanks for this opportunity. Thanks for letting me share. Because you know what, this is so important. This can shift and change people's lives.
Absolutely. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye. All right, Lightworker, let's just pause for a moment, because what you just heard is what real light work looks like. I mean, Jonathan Goldman didn't start his work because it was popular. He started it because it was true for him. And he stayed with it. I mean, you heard it for decades. And that is something every light worker gets the opportunity to remember. You don't build a meaningful mission by chasing visibility. You build it by holding this frequency of your work long enough for the world to meet you there. Now, if you're listening and you know you're here to grow a mission that matters, you know you're here to build a lightworker business that actually supports your life and your impact, then I want to invite you into Million Dollar Lightworker. Because Lightworker, you are never too old and you are never too young, and your light work matters now more than ever. All right, kids, until next time, keep shining your light.